It's 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. While locals hurry to work, a small group of travelers wait alongside a dusty track interchange. The spot is called Smith Dow's Yard, and for the next 2 days, it's the starting point for a celebrated excursion along the Iowa Interstate Railroad. From across the United States, members of the National Railway Historical Society have made the trip here to add miles and make new memories. With more than 13,000 members, the NRHS is the largest rail preservation organization in the United States.
My name is Tony White, and I'm from Stamford, Connecticut. A lot of the lines that we ride on with Amtrak, passenger service, but on the freight lines, you don't get to ride on that often, so that's rare mileage for you.
I'm Andy Brown. I'm from Moscow, Iowa. From what I hear, we're going to get a couple photo run-bys, which are always great, because when you're riding the train, you don't get to see the train, so that's, it gives us a chance to see the train from the outside that way.
I'm Bill Crawford from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm what we call in the railroad fan hobby a mileage collector, meaning I want to ride every mile of track in the world before I check out. Now that's not going to happen, but I'm going to give a slug at it.
A spin-off of the abandoned Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroads, the Iowa Interstate is a well-maintained, thriving regional railway. It moves more than 125,000 carloads of freight each year. The line stretches over 500 miles between Council Bluffs, Iowa, and Chicago, Illinois. For a part of this day's trip, the train's head end is a diesel engine painted to commemorate the Rock Island freight locomotive that carried grains, livestock, and coal between farmland and urban centers from the 1850s to the early 1900s. Communities relied on this line to help build towns and support new cities. Nowadays, the Iowa Interstate relies on progress and growing customer base, and forward-thinking visionaries to carry their freight forward. Henry Posner III took controlling interest of the Iowa Interstate in 2004.
Iowa Interstate is a completely different railroad than the Rock Island. Our market is serving local customers in Iowa and Illinois. We don't compete with the parallel class ones. You look at the map and say, who needs a fourth railroad from Chicago to Omaha? Our customers, our online customers, are virtually 100% of our business.
We're a nice sized railroad. We're large enough where we can professionally handle anything which comes along. But we're also small enough that with my staff, we can get things solved fairly quickly. Main commodities we carry are ethanol, corn syrup, gluten meal. We also carry a lot of straight grains, corn, soybeans, scrap steel. We have some paper business. We carry a whole gamut of commodities for different types of customers.
Iowa Interstate now is known for customer service. We do innovative things. We're not tied to one thing. You tell us what you want to move and how it needs to move, and we'll figure a way to do it.
Back in 2007, Interstate Management forecast a huge surge in freight traffic. To avoid a substantial investment in crew and facilities, they purchased a dozen state-of-the-art General Electric diesel engines to handle the welcome growth.
The GE 4400 AC locomotives have done a couple things for us. Number one, they're 29% more fuel efficient. Number two, they have better traction efforts. So on a train which may have had to have 5 of our prior locomotives, we could just use 2 locomotives to carry the same amount of freight. Number three, the emissions controls meet U.S. standards to make a greener environment, and they also have a higher degree of computerization to be much safer locomotives both for our train crews.
Well, we've received 3 Harriman Awards, but we got 2 Gold Harriman Awards for our safety performance relative to other railroads our size. Safety really is number one, because if you're running a safe railroad, you're more likely to have good service. If you're more likely to have good service, you're more likely to have more business. If you got more business, you're going to make a profit.
I will let you know something in a while, man, if you head this way.
I've been in the railroad industry for 46 years. Instead of working 5 derailments a night as a train master, we don't have derailments. So it's very enjoyable. The track is in excellent condition. A short line railroad like us being able to buy brand new locomotives is unheard of. It's nice to be on a railroad that is growing rather than one that was fading.
The Iowa Interstate Railroad is a spectacularly successful property that Henry Posner has made a tremendous success out of something that others were not able to make successful. It was a portion of the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific, which unfortunately went bankrupt and went out of business in the early 1980s.
If you had looked at this company back when Henry did, you might have said, you know, it's on its death throes, it's not going to go anywhere. But Henry saw differently. He saw that this company had the ability to grow and to prosper. The company, in essence, was steadied out back in the early 2000s by gaining a very good relationship with our largest customer.
Ethanol has probably been the single most important driver of the growth of the Iowa Interstate from a marginal regional railroad to the railroad that it is today. We didn't plan on ethanol, we'd never heard about it, and we survived long enough to take advantage of the opportunity that ethanol represented when it appeared literally out of nowhere.
As the train nears the Mississippi River, passengers scramble outside the rail cars to get a peek at Government Bridge. This two-tier trestle is unique in that its rail deck was built on top, with its highway deck running below. It also provides a rich chapter for the Iowa Interstate story.
It's the third bridge in that location. The first bridge was, in fact, the first bridge across the Mississippi, and at the time it was, shall we say, disliked by the steamboat interests, and so it was rammed by a steamboat. So we went out and hired a young lawyer by the name of Abraham Lincoln, and he successfully defended Rock Island against the steamboat company, and that in turn had the effect of launching his legal career and ultimately his becoming President of the United States. So there's a lot of very rich history there.
Another important piece of railway history awaits at today's final stop in Rock Island, Illinois. The last leg of the National Railway Historical Society excursion will be led by the most unique member of the Iowa Interstate fleet, the Chinese QJ-class steam locomotive.
Henry is a historian at heart. When China decided to go to diesel locomotives, he purchased 2 QJ locomotives and brought them to the United States to keep them from the cutting torch. He wanted to preserve history. One's pulling our trains today, the 6988. We've kind of Americanized it a little bit different look. But the 7081, our other locomotive, pulled the last long-distance passenger train in China. That will be kept in its original condition.
The last mainline steam locomotive in the U.S. was off the rails by 1960. So we that are interested in history are able to turn back the clock via what Iowa Interstate has done, and my daughters and other children will have the opportunity to see these absolutely fantastic machines at work. The sights, the sounds, it's just spectacular.
Think of the irony. By virtue of circumstance, we got to the point where the Iowa Interstate was formed, and then it survived, and then it began to prosper. At the same time, Chinese railways continue to expand and are one of the world models of railway development. And the opportunity came to combine these Chinese locomotives, which never were intended to come to the USA, on this railroad, the Iowa Interstate, which was never supposed to survive.
From an abandoned, bankrupt line to a thriving, award-winning regional carrier, one can't help but wonder what the future holds for the Iowa Interstate.
I think our future is very bright. We're looking at growth potentials between 10 and 20% a year. We're looking at further bringing of traffic, which will be better for the environment in terms of less greenhouse gas emissions. And we're looking to add additional jobs, which will help out the economy in the United States.
Iowa Interstate is going to grow. We just keep adding business. The fun part is trying to find ways to handle it.
If you can survive and run a safe railroad and be there long enough for good things to happen, it'll probably be better than it is today, because history has shown in the last decade or so that you got to make your own luck, and that it's more about being lucky than good. But if you're good, then you can be lucky.